Cannot wait to explore this city and purchase everybody's houses and then rent them back to them at extortionate prices. That's what Fable's about. So at long last, we've got a new Fable trailer, courtesy of the recent Xbox Games conference thing that I didn't watch. We got not just a new trailer to dive into, but also news that this game will be coming in 2025 to both Xbox Series consoles and PC. It shows us the premise of a game built on your reputation and your choices. The trailer looked a little bit too good to be believable, and of course, absurd humour. Definitely sounds like a Fable game. But of course there's discourse online. Apparently the protagonist's appearance means the game is destined to fail somehow. Or at least that was the discussion around the last trailer that dropped. Don't get me wrong, my optimism has limits. Playground Games are not Lionhead Studios, who made the Fable games that we know and presumably love-hate. But that isn't something that I necessarily have opinions on, because I'm not entirely sure what it is that I'm supposed to actually have an opinion on there. If it's all the same to you, I'd rather talk about and give my opinions on this trailer. This time around we're being spoken to by a fellow named Humphrey, who's Albion's greatest hero, and retired. And I suppose that's carrying over last year's interview format, in which we had Dave, the vegetable enthusiast, portrayed of course by Richard Ayoade, a comedian, actor, writer, director, and whatever else Google is telling me. And that trailer went over him making giant vegetables and then making himself a giant that our hero needed to stop. It was certainly a humorous trailer, and a chicken got punted, so what more could you want? This trailer certainly follows in that format, but this time we're not speaking with a vegetable enthusiast anymore, but rather a hero. Sure, he likes a good bevy and he's apparently retired, but hey, at least he doesn't know how to turn himself and any nearby vegetable into giant versions of themselves. Or does he? Anyway, he talks about how a hero's life comes with both fame and haters, while also mentioning that your decisions have weight. You can be good and be seen as good, or bad and be seen as bad. I would argue that morality scale is pretty integral to Fable. In the Fable games, your actions and decisions have defined your character more or less from jump, so it would be incredibly jarring if that wasn't a focal point of this new game. So I suppose it's just good to see it confirmed to be a thing that's returning, much like punting chickens, which is also oddly integral to Fable's identity. One of the biggest points I wanted to make was about the visual styling of these trailers. Now, I think it's safe to assume that this is in-game footage. It said so on the Dave trailer. I'm going to call it the Dave trailer. This is the Humphrey trailer. And since this trailer looks similar to that trailer that was supposedly in-game footage, I think it's safe to assume the same is going on here. At least on the visual front. And with that in mind, from an aesthetic perspective, I'm not awfully convinced. There's no denying visually the environments do look fantastic. Those first few shots of what I can only assume is Bowerstone look tremendous. But one thing that the development and progress of video game graphics has done to me is make me nostalgic for the times where making a game look so good it's almost realistic wasn't possible. And the old Fable games art style is one example of this, where because achieving that realistic aesthetic wasn't plausible, each individual game was more visually distinct, down to virtually every last detail. I do know I'm risking sounding ridiculous here. I'm not saying more impressive visuals are automatically bad, when if anything they are usually a positive. I'm just saying there was a certain visual charm to older Fable games that I'm not getting in the trailers we've seen for this new Fable so far. That doesn't mean that charm is absent, nor does it mean that these games need the old Fable charm rather than come up with something new as a soft reboot of sorts. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, it's just going to take warming up to for me. I'm struggling to articulate my point, and I have to acknowledge I am incredibly biased. I like the impressive visuals as much as anybody else. It's just that games don't look unique automatically on their aesthetic anymore, or at least not to the same extent. And a lot of games are made with looking good not as a positive, but rather a not negative. I probably should have left that for later in the video so I could have sapped more watch time out of you before you realised I'm nuts, but there you go. It appears we got our first few snippets of combat gameplay in this trailer, and I can't fault it. It looks very cinematic, if that's indeed what it's going to look like. It's a bit hard to tell. Everyone's saying it is gameplay, but the trailer itself doesn't say whether it is or isn't. I think it's a safe assumption, but now that so many games take so long to make and look so cinematic, it's hard to gauge. In simple terms, my head hurt. It's definitely hard to gauge how a game's combat is going to look or feel on 2 or 3 shots though, so I suppose we'll have to wait until we see more. And with the release window of 2025 now announced, How true they are to that, it's the games industry, you just never know. You'd hope that might mean Microsoft, Playground Games and so on will be ramping up the marketing aspect in the near future, so we can learn more about the game in the context of a game, i.e. via a demo, or more gameplay focused promotional content in general. And I think I'd be keen to see how this game actually plays longer than 1 second strung after 1 second of footage. I want to know if we can do side jobs, for instance, like making pies or blacksmithing and things like that just were way more fun than they had any right to be, or even tried to be, in the older Fable games. I'd also like to know if we can break the economy by purchasing every single property on the map and then renting them out at extremely high prices. Is there a scars system? Will they bring Peter Molyneux back so we can overhype the game? The list goes on. All I know is there is plenty of time for us to find out. In the 5 minutes that I could stomach being on what was formerly twitter.com, I saw a lot of people asking about whether or not this new Fable will have character customization, and that's not really a thing in any Fable game that I've played. In both Fable 2 and 3 you can choose between male and female protagonists, but their look is kind of their look. You can change outfits, hairstyles, hair colour, change their facial hair if you want, but customization was quite light and the base facial structure of the character was set. And in the first Fable you could only play as a fellow, so there's no guarantees of anything really there, besides from perhaps some customization once you're out exploring the world. But we'll need to find out more to actually know about this, and on that front I'm personally not fussed. Aside from that, this trailer sports some good old fashioned humour. In both this and the last trailer it's tasteful but farcical, and that is quite bang on. As for the storytelling in this trailer, Humphrey, the greatest hero in Albion, who's apparently portrayed by a fellow named Matt King, recounts the time he took in a young hero who made all the wrong choices in the end, using interspersed footage of the player protagonist to make you think he's talking about her. And as the trailer goes on you realise he's talking about somebody altogether different, who then shows up at the end of the trailer.
She's back.
So I presume that's actual game plot related, otherwise why not reveal the identity of this character? So hopefully that means this Humphrey and this Dave are actually in the game and not just used to express a marketing point. And I mean, I'm sure they are, it's just you never know until you know. Like I said twice, I think the game is coming in 2025 to Xbox Series consoles and Steam, that's a good sign, and will be coming to Game Pass, which I suppose is nice for your wallet depending on how much you actually use Game Pass. But I always like hearing a game is releasing on PC on Steam, rather than one of the other 16 billion launches out there. I understand Steam takes a cut, and that's not ideal, but from a consumer's perspective, I despise faffing through 600 launches. But to round it all off, I quite like this Fable trailer, and I look forward to seeing more. I think this character interview format has certainly run its course, and any future trailers should explore the game they're marketing in perhaps a different way. I just think that framing eats up a lot of time, which could be dedicated to showcasing the product more comprehensively. I mean, I'm sure they could probably do another one of these, but certainly not on its own. We need to see something with a bit more meat to it, so to speak. We certainly will before the game launches, you'd hope. And with a release window now announced, that's going to be any time between now and sometime next year. But who knows? I know this has been a short video, but I've gone over everything I like to speak about and think it's best I wrap up now. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. It would be massively appreciated. Only, of course, if you want to. Maybe follow me on some social media where I post barely anything related to my YouTube content, but I hope you're all doing well and having a good time wherever you are. And with any luck, I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.